Scott Tinker joins me now. He's with the University of Texas at Austin. Scott, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. You've been looking at this industry, you've been working in this industry for quite a while, and when we look at where we're going for the future, it's a very, very different picture ahead for the next 10 years probably than it was 10 years ago. What do you think are the key challenges?
Well, of course, one of the biggest challenges is public perception. How does the public perceive energy? How do they see oil and gas? How do they see coal? How do they see the options? Right now in the West, it's a clean and dirty, good and bad perception. The rest of the world, not so much. So there's a lot of education about the importance of energy, all it does for us, and some of its challenges. And I think that's one of the great things we face as we go forward, is just public understanding of all that energy does that's good for us and how we can make it environmentally better.
It is, as you say, there is a bit of a divide, a big divide. There's not a bit of a divide, there's a huge divide. How does the industry change that? Because it probably could be accused of not being at its very best in terms of actually being proactive to change that narrative.
Yeah, historically the energy hasn't done a great job of putting itself out there and educating. It's kind of kept its head down and done its business. But information, data, facts matter, and I think bringing that to an educational setting, investing in groups that are truly providing good information to the middle schools and high schools, university campuses, and then public as well. The energy industry can help a lot by investing in that kind of honest education. And it's education that has the long-term effects. There's always going to be short-term things that go on that you can't mitigate,
But of course, sustainability in this sector is what's going to give everybody a license to operate. It's what's going to keep people in business as well. I mean, we look at the projections out there from IEA, we look at any of the big projections that are there, OPEC projections. Oil and gas is still going to be, hydrocarbons, a part of the energy mix for many, many years to come. So that energy transition will probably take a little bit longer than some people might see or might hope. So really it's about bringing everybody to the table. Would you agree?
Yeah. The energy transition started with the first humanoid. We were burning wood and putting hay into vehicles. So that transition has been ongoing, away from carbon-based things like wood and hay and coal, toward hydrocarbons, now toward natural gas, which is mostly hydrogen, methane, and then beyond. And so I think when we think about a transition, it's not really a carbon to something else transition. It's a difference in the fuels and how they impact the environment, so how we keep them in a sense that's clean, the water, the land, the local air emissions, and the atmosphere. All the environment matters, all of it. We tend to get focused on the climate now, but that leaves behind local air, land, and water. And many of the renewable energies are terrific for atmospheric emissions, but when you start thinking about building lots of turbines and panels and batteries, we're talking about mining, and mining at scales that are unprecedented. You got to bring this stuff out, you got to manufacture it, and then where do they go? We put them in the ground in landfills, particularly the batteries and the panels. So I think of green as something much more broad than just the atmosphere. All forms of energy have challenges, but they all have an important role to play in that mix.
Indeed, a much more holistic view, which I think everybody has to look at, because it's not as simple as it sounds, and it has to be a win-win really for everybody. It's great to have you here in Saudi Arabia, and of course, this is a big deal for everyone in Saudi Arabia. They brought this big conference here. They've wanted to have it here for so long, and here it is, IPTC in Saudi Arabia, in Dhahran, really the home of Saudi Aramco. And that, how important is it too? Because I guess when you look at Saudi Arabia, there's a lot been going on here, a lot of changes, and for the industry, I think perhaps to cement and maybe take some action on what you're all talking about. This is probably a great opportunity as they start a new decade.
It is. I first came here in 1997, almost a quarter of a century ago, for a Super K conference. And the changes that have been going on in the region, the growth, modernization, education, both getting educated globally, and many friends that I have and students that I've had are now back here running things. So it's good to see that kind of new energy in the energy world.